Hey, y'all, I'm Shane Sams, the host of the Membership Masters podcast. I'm a self-employed, location-independent online entrepreneur, and I've built multiple million-dollar memberships. I've helped thousands of other people start, build, and grow membership sites of their own as well. I started this podcast to help business owners just like you create incredible memberships and subscriptions and recurring revenue for your business. Each week, I interview some of the most successful entrepreneurs anywhere in the world, experts in marketing, branding, sales, and retention. Today's show is going to be a great one. I know you are going to love my interview with one of my good friends, Cliff Ravenscraft. Cliff Ravenscraft is one of the most well-known and successful podcasters anywhere on the planet. He has recorded, get this, over 5,000 podcast episodes and grew to fame as the podcast answer man when podcasts first emerged on the scene. Now Cliff spends his time as a mentor and a coach and has become the mindset answer man. He shares all the lessons and wisdom that he has picked up along the way in his entrepreneurial journey. We cover a lot of ground in this week's podcast. On this episode, you're going to learn how to overcome the biggest mindset challenges that are holding you back in your business journey. We talk about how to be happy and content in any situation so that you can enjoy the journey of entrepreneurship, not just the destination. We go down a rabbit hole and talk about how to use hypnotherapy techniques to mesmerize your audience and your customers. And Cliff gives us 7 amazing tips for improving customer retention and turning your members into forever customers. I know you are going to have a blast listening to my interview with Cliff Ravenscraft today. But before we get started, I have just one question for you. Are you ready to become a membership master today? All right, let's go. Welcome to the Membership Masters podcast, brought to you by membershipmasters.com. This is the podcast where we teach you how to get and keep more members every single month. I've helped thousands of people start, build, and grow memberships, and I interview some of the biggest membership owners anywhere online. My goal is to help you build $1 million membership of your own. Brick by brick, let's do it together. Come on. Cliff.
Shane, how are you?
What's up, man?
Dude, just enjoying life to the fullest.
Amen.
Blessed beyond imagination.
Do I sound good? Am I good? You sound great.
You sound freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, buddy. That's what I'm talking about, man. I've had some great, I really have had a great day. It's been a good day, dude. Got some good opportunities opening up, man. Freaking just things are stacked. You know how sometimes you put in a lot of groundwork and then they just stack up on you and good things start rolling out of the universe.
I do know those things.
It's happening right now, man.
It's worth putting in the effort.
Yes. Even when you don't get the immediate reward.
The fun part is there's these people that like to compare themselves to other people, and I'm not where you are, and I wish I could do this and all that other stuff. And I was watching a video today that comes from the Hindu faith that I've been studying. And this one lady says to her guru and says, well, that's great for you, but I'm not Yogananda. And Yogananda says to his student, he says, listen, the only thing between Yogananda and any other man is I put in the effort.
Yeah, man. Woo! Send chills down my spine at the beginning of the show. How's keto and health and all that good stuff going right now?
Dude, whatever serves me is going well. So keto, I've been on that. Gosh, I guess it's maybe been 2 years, and I love keto. I recently have toyed around with going off keto.
Okay.
And a lot of recent realizations about what I'm doing and why I do things and how much of what I'm doing is to continue to impress people and to be an example of others and all of that stuff. And then the question of how much of that is really necessary for me to be in a powerful and profound and positive impact in people's lives. And, I forgot what it's like to have carbs, and
They're good, man.
let's go and
They're
have
delicious.
let's go and have some French fries and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden I like, hey, let's stop by Grater's ice cream and have some Grater's ice cream. And I was reminded very quickly why I gave all that stuff up, because I felt like crap.
That's right.
I'm like, and it's what's weird is I intentionally I ate that stuff, and then I'm like, okay, I'm totally going back on keto. And like, it's like, okay, Monday, let's get back on track and blah, blah, blah. And then it's 2 weeks later, it's date night again, because we go to date night every other week. And for 3 different date nights, so every other week for 3 different phases of date night, I went off keto, and I felt like crap every single time. And it took me like 2 to 3 days to get back to feeling good, positive, healthy vibes. And I'm sitting there asking myself, do I enjoy the pleasure of the consumption of carbs? Which, come on, let's be honest, they taste good.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, delicious. Are you
But
kidding me?
but I had to ask myself the question: at what cost? At what cost? And there's some different things for me that makes keto something that's more enjoyable for me than most people. I was diagnosed with hypoglycemia, so I have problems with low blood sugar. So mine is a little bit more than just the random toxicity of sugar and how it's a poison in your system that you can find out information about online if you just did a YouTube search about how sugar is actually worse for you than alcohol in many cases. But that all being set aside, I have the extra benefit of having low blood sugar. So I'm back off the stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I had made a lifelong commitment to give up sugar 2.5, actually almost, it'll be 3 years in November. I made a decision to give up sugar for the rest of my life almost 3 years ago. And then after more than 2 years, I decided to, I forgot what that's like. Let me do it. And no,
you remembered very, very fast. It's funny. My food journey. I think everybody. I love what you said about. It's like, what's the cost and benefit analysis? What's the risk and the reward, right? Like I do as low sugar as possible, but I do eat like beans and other carbs like chickpeas and things like that, because I need that energy, because I'm a big guy. I lift really heavy weights, and I didn't feel as good on keto for weightlifting as I did when I got those carbs. Like when I eat black beans with eggs, I can rip a workout. When I don't, I'm struggling. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And but just the other day, like I do try to avoid the really, really bad stuff. But man, there's this new ice cream shop opened up down here in our little hometown, and it's called Sweeties. And dude, it's like one of those shops where they make the milkshake and they put a giant piece of cake on the top of it. I mean, it's one of those like decorative like deals. And you know, my little girl, of course, she's like a hummingbird with her metabolism, and she's a cheerleader and she does all these things. I took her to date night the other day, just me and her, daddy-daughter night, right? So I took her to our favorite Mexican restaurant. I brought in some pork rinds so I could dip those in the salsa instead of the chips. You know what I'm talking about? And I did all that. But man, we went to Sweeties, and she goes, "What are you going to get?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm going to get a cup of coffee, baby. You can get whatever you want." And she goes, "Oh, I want you to get something with me." So now it's not just the health cost benefit analysis. It's the moment and the memory and the experience of that moment with my daughter, because we only get one day a week maybe by ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. You know, because I got my son, I got my wife, we got all these things balancing. So the older I get, I even find that those calculations also have to kind of weave into all these decisions we make. You know,
that's absolutely correct. They need to be woven into it, and you have to figure out, you know, what does this cost? You know, making this exception here about, you know, how does that tip the scale in all the other value? Many times we have competing values. We have competing beliefs about what's necessary and what's good and what's right. And yeah, so it's a journey. It's a journey for sure. And I think that everybody should make those determinations upon themselves of what they feel is right, with the best information that's made available to them at the time. And, you know, and let's just stop shaming one another. And more than anything, dude, let's just stop shaming ourselves.
Oh yeah, man. That's Yeah, man. We Jocelyn, she suffered, and we've talked about this on the other podcast that we do. But like, she really struggled with for about 2 years there after we sold our first our company. She really struggled with some guilt and some shame and some depression and just all these weird emotions that kind of come with that first wave of success you get, you know. And man, we realized, we went, through therapy and talking to each other and just, the whole journey. It's these expectations we put on ourselves that are so vicious. And like, man, with entrepreneurs, it's terrible because you're in this catch-22 when you're starting out, especially. You have to model, and you have to find leaders, and you have to find successful people doing it the right way to learn the best practices and learn what it takes to kind of rise up to the next level, whether it's a membership or coaching or whatever you're doing. But then you get into this insidious comparison syndrome, right? And all of a sudden you get so out of whack. I mean, you do start shaming yourself as compared to the person you perceive is more successful, but then you can't really learn what it takes unless you model it. Do you find that too? Do you struggle with any of that, or have you seen that as you've went through your career?
I certainly have fallen into all of the things that you've described in the past, and I've since abandoned a lot of that. Thankfully, I've broken free from so much of it. I'm sure there's a lot of it that's unconscious that I still do, and I'm a never-ending work in progress, my friend. The cool thing is I'm always making progress. But yes, I've experienced all those things that you talked about. A couple thoughts, man. You threw out like 4 global generalizations for entrepreneurialism, and I don't know if I'll remember all of them. But the first one I'd love to attack. Is the idea that you have to find somebody and model that's done it and that is it the right way and learn from them and stuff like that. There's certainly that's one theory of finding success is finding a role model and learning from them and stuff like that. I follow Tony Robbins in the whole role modeling thing. I'm a huge fan of that. But have you ever heard of this podcast called How I Built This by Guy Raz?
Oh yeah.
Great podcast.
NPR, isn't that an NPR podcast?
Yeah, it's an NPR podcast, and I haven't listened to every single podcast episode, but what I will tell you is when I was subscribed to it for the first several years that he was producing the show, I would only listen to episodes where he's doing an interview of a brand or a person that is instantly recognizable to me as somebody that's like, oh my gosh, this is somebody who's made a movement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, like, for example, I've never bought a pair of Spanx, but he interviewed the woman who created Spanx, and I know what Spanx are, okay? 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Southwest Airlines, Jim Beam, whiskey, and all of these different various, like the guy behind the Power Rangers. Right. So I love all of these different, the 5-hour energy drink guy. So all of these interviews, and I found one common thread among so many of those things that just stood out to me. It's like, oh my gosh, the number of people who I've heard interviewed that have experienced significant, massive success, off the charts success, where people who got into an industry where a guy, obviously, who was your role model? How did you, who did you follow? And it's like, listen, I got into this and I didn't know squat about this industry. I knew nothing. And I attribute all of my success to the fact that I knew nothing and I sought no advice from any expert in this industry.
Yeah. That no preconceived notions.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
So I think there's truth on both sides of that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So there's go find somebody that's already doing what you're doing, find out what it is that they're doing, why they're doing it, what their beliefs are that lead them to do those things, and model them and stuff. So yeah, I've been there, done that, and I gotta tell you, for me personally, I'm more on I want to beat my own path. I want people, okay, I used to believe that I wanted people to model me. It's come follow me. I'm clearing a new path, and I'll be a different alternative. No, I'm following my path.
Yeah,
I'm
your version of the path.
That's exactly
the
it.
evolution of the path as Cliff walked it. Basically,
Yeah.
it's like when if you walk out in the woods enough, eventually you beat it down a little bit, and maybe somebody's ran through there before, but you just beat it down really good, and maybe took a turn, curved it around, and really like memberships are exactly like that. I think that's why I was so drawn to the membership model as my business model. It wasn't exactly like everybody else was doing. When I was a football coach, I was really super contrarian. Like I liked the weird, like I tried to, when I got my first head coaching job, I tried to run everybody else's playbook like you're supposed to run it. But then I realized my kids didn't look like their kids, and my coaching staff didn't look like their staff. And if I didn't figure out a way to do it a little different, we weren't going to win with what the winners were doing, the state champs were doing, right? And so I took that into entrepreneurship. When we became online entrepreneurs, of course we sold courses, of course we sold coaching, of course we did all these things, but I realized the membership model became my thing, and it could look the way I wanted it. Yeah, there's certain basics, I guess, fundamentals, but and every membership we see started by the successful people in our community, they do the same thing. They come up with some idea that if they had just done it like Shane and Jocelyn, it never would have worked. But then they make it work like in their program and in their way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I've been down that path of trying to follow the success, and some of the people that are my peers, the people I'm closely related to and friends with, and people who what I used to view as the ultimate success. And it's like, man, I'm just honored. I can't believe that I'm in relationship with these people, let alone I call them my close personal friends. And I pursued by default, because I thought it was what was supposed to be. I'd try to mimic everything I could learn from them. I'd try to apply it myself. And the only thing I found, Shane, is the stuff that I was applying, it was working. It was working. And the more successful I became going down the path of my peers, I hated my business and my life more and more. So I had the success that I thought is what I should want. And I was progressively getting more and more of that success, but I was losing more and more in touch of who I am and who I'm created to be.
Yeah.
And this is a relatively new thing. I started this conference. I'm going to work towards stadium events. Cliff Ravenscraft, you're going to hear his name. He's that guy that did what very few other people do. There's a handful of people fill stadiums with tens of thousands of people. Cliff Ravenscraft is one of the latest guys who's really built things up. So I'm like pursuing this path. And I can do this, and so I start out small with Free the Dream, and of course I call it start out small. I put $65,000 into a live event and go all out. And it's
joke. That is no joke, man.
Yep. And so and you know what? I had people from 4 different countries. I had people from all over the United States, and the people's lives that came there, it was absolutely off the charts. The transformation. I never felt more alive than I did on that stage. But I got to tell you, what it took for me to get to there, I realized this isn't who I'm supposed to be. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that my vision of standing on stages and communicating and having a powerful, profound, and positive impact in the people's lives through me storytelling with them, having a conversation with them about mindset and about being authentic and transparent and finding out who you are in this world, and not only finding out who you are, but totally embracingly and fully living it out, doing nothing that's out of alignment or integrity with who you've discovered that you are. That's me. And I have no doubt that feeling that I had on the stage of my own event, 2 years in a row I did Free the Dream, that's a part of me. But what I realized is, at least in this season of my life, it's not my path for me to create that environment. And I'm waiting. I'm thinking, okay, is it now? This is just a season where I'm not supposed to pursue that, which is possible. I'm evaluating that. Or is it possible that it will be thrust upon me? It's like, listen, Cliff, there's this thing, and I just want to hand it over to you. I want to invite you in, partner with me on it. I don't know what it's going to be. I just know that I'm destined for some pretty big things on a stage. At least I feel that that's the vision.
Sure.
But I don't. But unlike where I was all in, dude. I like around the clock. I'll do anything and everything. I will sacrifice anything necessary as long as it's moral, legal, ethical, and that my wife's on board with it. I'll do anything. I'll work around the clock. And you know what? I did some significant sacrifice.
Sure.
And I experienced what would be expected as your first year and second year success and all that stuff. But the ironic thing is that way before COVID ever happened, I made the decision to shut it down. I remember chatting with you on Voxer about that. It's like, dude,
I can't tell you. Like, I was actually just talking to somebody this morning about this. I don't know if it was a God thing. I don't know if it was just dumb luck, but there's been multiple people. Like, I was talking to Ryan Moran about this the other one day, and I've talked to you about it. Like, I don't know what made us think, let's take a year off, but we did. And man, thank God we did, because we were the same way. We were like, we know this is an important thing. It's been a great couple years of doing this. It's still going to be a part of what we do. We just may skip a year or maybe, but like, for some reason, we just had this feeling like, let's not do it next year. And
isn't that funny?
Dude,
I had the same thing, man. It's like, and this was, for me, it was October of 2019. I made this decision.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this next year. I had already had $21,000 in ticket sales for 2020. And my thing was, I'm going to communicate to those people and say, listen, you can either come to a small gathering. We're going to have like a community gathering. It's not going to be a big event. It's not going to be anything like what you've experienced these past 2 years. And if you want a full 100% refund, I'll give it back to you. But yeah, free the dream. I'm not going to do it in 2020. And then even again, before COVID, I had already determined, I know 2021, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, man. I love this though, because like, it's funny. Like this show is different than Flipped Lifestyle. Like Flipped Lifestyle, I help people in our community. It's real hands-on. It's more like coaching, really, is what we do on that, right? But this show, and man, I've been so blessed to talk to amazing, like you and Pat and Dan Miller and just all these amazing people that have for some reason agreed to talk to me on this podcast, right? But it's funny because this podcast is very much presented as people who have got it together, who have succeeded, who've known, it's people talking about but if you're listening to this right now, I mean, by any outside appearance, you can look at me or your life and be like, what? How's that possible? But like, it's even still, I feel you wrestling with, what's the next step? I'm figuring this out. Like, what's good for me now? What's good for me in the future? And like, dude, this is a conversation that me and Jocelyn have had the last year or two. Like, what's good for us now? Is this where we want to go? Like, we are all, like, no matter how successful you get from the beginning to end, we're just figuring this out. We're figuring out what what we want our life to look like. We want our spouse and our partnership to look like. And I think that's actually, when you get to that point where you accept that, it's probably never going to be stone. It's always going to be something I'm molding. Then you can kind of embrace the journey of it and say, it's not about the next goal or the next stage. And those are things I want to pursue. But man, success is really like this. It's figuring it out, man, and having the power and the ability to figure it out, like control enough over your life to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you mentioned Dan Miller, and Dan and I have been close friends for many years. He's a personal friend and mentor of mine, and one of the stories he tells is that as a little kid, his dad was not an Amish pastor? What's the other one?
Quaker or
maybe it was Amish, but anyway, it was one Mennonite.
There you go.
He was a Mennonite pastor, and so his dad was not into the worldly things and all that other stuff, and so Dan Miller snuck in a 45 RPM record called The Strangest Secret, which was a self-help album that says you can be anything you want in life, and you can become rich and wealthy and all this stuff.
Oh,
and so
no.
so Dan would sneak that, he would hide it under his bed and he'd pull it out at night and listen to Earl Nightingale. And if I encourage people, if you've not listened to The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale, go to YouTube and just do a search for The Strangest Secret, Earl Nightingale. It's 30, 45 minutes, depending on which version you get. And it is an amazing piece of content. And it's where he defines, there are two different definitions that he gives of what is success. So one, and the official definition that Earl Nightingale gave, is success is the worthy progression of, the progression of a worthy idea. So you have a goal in mind. It's a worthy idea. It's something worth pursuing. And success is the progression toward it. So it's not the attainment of it, but it's the progression. And any step forward towards a worthy idea is success. Now, I like that. But there's something else that he says in there, and it's not the official definition of success, and it's almost word for word. I'll probably slightly paraphrase it. He said, success is a man who's doing what he's doing because he intentionally chose to do it.
Oh my goodness. That right there, man. Woo! Like, yeah. I mean, it's like controlling every minute of your day. Isn't that amazing? Like,
think about this. And Matt, no, I can't remember the last time I slept in on a weekday, but let's just say it's 10:30 in the morning on a Monday morning, right? It's 10:30 and I'm just rolling out of bed. And I'm like, man, what an incredible success I am. Because I just slept in until 2:30 and until 10:30, and it's because I intentionally chose to do so today.
Yeah, man.
Success is anyone who's doing what they're doing because they intentionally chose to do it. And the specific story he gives is, you got these people who are pursuing their millions, their wealth, where they'll never have to work again a day in their life if they chose not to do so. They'd never have to meet their financial needs. But he says, what about the school teacher? Is he not a success? Well, the school teacher is a success if, in fact, he is teaching because that's what he intentionally chose to do. Regardless of what money's in his bank account and where he is financially, so many people, everybody gets to choose for themselves what is success? How do you define it? And so for me, I've gravitated towards those two definitions for myself. Actually, I even have a little bit more of a modified success. So I'll tell you that in a second if you're interested. But the first one is
I'm always interested in what you got to say, brother.
Success is the worthy. It's the progression towards a worthy idea, and a success is a person. Let's just be less sexist. Success is a person. Is any person who is doing what they're doing because they intentionally chose to do it. That is a success.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Yeah. I get the great privilege of being able to voxer with you sometimes. Whenever I'm needing a dose of positive speak, I always shoot you a message, right? so what else? So how do you modify that then? How do you go to the next level? Like,
dude, so have you ever heard of DJ Khaled?
Oh yeah,
that song. All I ever do is win, win, win. I never stop.
Oh yeah,
that's me. I win every day. Every day is a successful day. Have you ever, Shane, asked me, "Hey Cliff, how's it going?" Have you ever asked me that question?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you know what response I give every single time?
It's positive.
I've never been better.
Yep,
it gets better every single minute of the day. And people have challenged me. It's like, oh, come on, Cliff. Seriously. No, that can't be true. And I'm like, tell me why. Tell me more. Please do argue for your limitations. I'll listen.
Right. Yeah. My favorite story off of this was when I did that little summit back when the coronavirus first hit and you went through this and we were both kind of like, this is crazy, but we're doing it. Let's do it. And you told this story about how, your worst case scenario, I run out of food, which means I get to meet my neighbor and maybe they share some beans with me. And I laughed. I've told that story 100 times, man, because it is true. Like the mindset you wake up in is really just, what do I want? Right? Like it's what do I want to do today? How do I want to feel today? And that doesn't mean you don't feel bad sometimes or there's a down moment. It's just, I'm not gonna accept that.
I'm not gonna stay there.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, there's
stuck in the mud,
Yeah, and it's a choice. How you feel is a choice. I was by the way, if you remind me, I'll come back and answer the question how I modified it, because now I'm on a whole new train of thought. Right. So let's ride this train, see where it takes us. So I was reading the book The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And in that book, I really struggled with the question. He asks this. He says, "Are you willing to feel good and have your life go well all of the time?" And I'm like, what a ridiculously stupid question. No, I'm not even going to entertain that because it's so ludicrous. Why would you ask? It's kind of like asking if money were no object, what would you? It's like, well, money's always an object.
Yeah.
Or is it? See, what I had come to realize, I'm going to I just brought onto the table, is money an object? I want to just push that to the side, unless you want to bring it up later. But I don't even want to talk about that one. But I do want to talk about. I realized I was confronted with this belief that was a long-held belief from childhood that there's no way that you could feel good all the time. But Gay Hendricks did not ask me, are you going to feel good? Are you going to choose to feel good all the time? It's not what he said. He says, are you willing? And I didn't even realize. It's like, well, wait a second. Okay, let's just assume for a moment it were possible to feel good and have your life go well all of the time. If you could accept that might be possible, if it were possible, would you be willing? That's the question. And then I'm like, it took me a while. It took me about 3 or 4 days of really thinking through that question. Yeah, I guess I would be willing. If it were possible, I'd be willing to feel good and have my life go well all the time. It's like, I can't imagine turning down feeling good or turning down having my life go well. Now, I'd rather, you know what, if you don't mind, I'm tired of winning, and if it's
I am
okay
not willing to succeed. No,
I'd like to experience some suffering this week, if you don't mind.
Right.
I just want to make sure I don't lose touch with reality or something. I don't know. And so what happened was I said, yes, I'd be willing. But then I was studying all this Tony Robbins material, which he has brought in over 200 different books on psychology and philosophy and all this other stuff. And he taught me through a series of different programs. I listened to Creating Lasting Change, which is a 10-day audio program from him. Personal Power 2, which is a 30-day audio program from him. I've been to his Unleash the Power Within conference 3 times now, and have one of his virtual or one of his audio recordings of it. So I've gone through these materials over and over again. And one of the things he talks about is being in 100% control of your emotional state. That there are techniques that you can do to actually choose which emotional state that you're in. You can experience peace, joy, love, abundance, happiness, all of that stuff. That's a choice. Or you can choose to be depressed, angry, frustrated, anxious, worried. All of this, those are choices as well. Those are not things that are thrust upon us. They're choices. And we actually run what we call patterns or meta routines inside of our body. And we use our focus, our physiology, and our language or meaning associated to certain things, which actually gives us chemical responses in the brain. Now, all of this, by the way, is assuming that you don't have some sort of brain deformity that causes or some kind of chemical imbalance. I'm not here to say that there aren't people that aren't depressed that you know what I'm saying.
Sure,
there.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but let's just assume that the chemical stuff is in the way that it should be in your brain. We have that decision. And I had begun to practice this. And what I used to experience depression at least once a year. And it was always from Thanksgiving through Christmas. And there were some reasons there. I thought maybe it was the seasonal affective disorder and all that stuff, which is called SAD. Some of it was related to my biological father, who was a drug addict and alcoholic, and spending time with him around those 2 different holidays, whatever it was. But I would get into a pretty decent funk. I mean, like, and I'm being, I wouldn't get out of bed for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Not to the place where I'm like, I just don't want to live anymore. I just lacked motivation. It's like, why bother kind of deal. And it would last for a couple weeks at a time. Well, I started learning these principles, these techniques. This was in June 2016. Well, all of a sudden that season, we're talking 2016, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, they hit me, the same triggers, the same anchors were there. My dad's family calls up, hey, you coming over? My dad would start doing these things, and all the stuff associated with that time of the year, sun going down, it's dark, all that other stuff. But the interesting thing is I'm not actually experiencing that, funk for 2 weeks. I'm experiencing it for 3 days instead of 2 weeks. And I got out of it. And then all of a sudden it'd be a couple weeks and I'd hit it again. And it's not 3 days. It's like a day and a half, 2 days.
Mm.
And what happened, and then of course it went away just like it magically did every year. January 1st, new year, new life, boom, we're gone, we're off to the races. But then the 2017 came and all of this stuff. And so it was, instead of a day and a half, it's like a couple hours. And now there have been, I've had big, huge, I've taken some very big financial risks in some big things that may or may not work. And some of them have worked and several of them haven't. And I recently, 2018, I had a $38,000 loss in my business, a $38,000 loss. Well, instantly, boom, gone. And I wasn't prepared for it. And I got to tell you, I was really tempted to go into that dark space. And I did for about an hour. And then I got to work and it's done. And so Tony always joked around. He says, look, you know what? I'll give myself 90 seconds.
Yeah.
That's about a lot. That's about how long I'll let one of those negative emotions rule me. Now, it's not that he's, it depends on the severity of what's going on. But then all of a sudden I realized, wait a second, I get to choose whether or not I feel good. And all of it has to do with how you define what you're experiencing means. And I can create rules where I win all of the time. And I promise you, I'm getting back to that, how I change the rules for what success is. So here's what I found out is that I actually can choose to feel good, and I can choose to associate a different meaning to a $38,000 loss to where that's actually working towards my benefit. So therefore, that $38,000 loss isn't something to get anxious about or worried about. It's not something that's happened against me that's going to push me back and cause me to have to recover. No, that all happened for my benefit. This is here for my growth. And as a result of this, I'm going to learn and expand, and I'm going to be able to contribute at a higher level. And so now all of a sudden, I actually realize it's not only possible, but it is within my power to choose to feel good and have my life go well all the time. And so I went from having Gay Hendricks ask that question in the book, are you willing to feel good and have your life go well all the time? And finally saying, yeah, okay, I'm willing. But now my affirmation, my life, my mission on a daily basis, I'm not only willing, I'm committed to feeling good and having my life go well all of the time.
I love it, man. Dude, that's deep.
So how do I experience success on a daily basis? It's all about, I consider myself to be a success if I'm in the profit column. All right. So, and this has nothing to do with the bank account, nothing to do within the bank account. So and this actually comes from the great prophet Sadhguru. Have you ever heard of Sadhguru?
From you.
Okay.
You were my introduction to Sadhguru.
Have you seen anything of him since I've introduced you to him?
I think I watched a video or something about him when you told me about it, but I've not read the stuff you're reading.
Okay,
I want to, but got other stuff on the plate right now. You know what I'm saying? One book at a time. One thing at a time.
Sadhguru said something in one of his TikTok videos, and I just found it so fascinating, and I've attached to it and I refuse to let go. And he says, listen, we were born into this world with nothing, naked, no possessions, nothing at all. Anything that we have in life, including oxygen, is in the profit. And so when I think about this, let's just say, I grow, I'm 47 years old today. I've built a very successful business. Financially, I'm doing better now than I've ever dreamed doing 10 years ago. My life is so much better. But here's what I can tell you. And it goes along with, that whole mindset that I had about COVID and, if we lost everything. I could lose all of my money. I could have every single penny taken away from me. I could lose my house. I could have all of my cars taken away. You could strike it all away, put me in prison, and I'm still in the profit column because I still have a body that is enabling me to breathe. I have a heartbeat. I woke up. Any day above dirt is a good day. So if I'm above dirt, I'm successful.
Yeah, man. That's what I posted this morning. I actually, I went outside. So there's water behind my house, and the fog was rolling across the water. And today was really the first like cold day. You know what I'm saying? Like a fall, like where it's crisp, and you want to go get your hoodie and your coffee and chill or whatever. And like, I posted that. I said, you woke up, better earn it, because I think we've all learned that this year. Like there's no guaranteeing not just of life tomorrow, but it's stability or like drastic change. Probably the biggest change in our lives happened this year for anyone who's been alive. Right?
Hopefully it's the biggest change.
It's the big. Yeah, let's just keep it there.
Let's be honest though. Seriously though, let's just recognize for a moment there are people who, for the last decades of our life, have woke up one day and they no longer had their legs or their arms, or there's people who, trust me, COVID-19 ain't got nothing on what they woke up and lost one day.
Yeah, man. I heard a buddy of mine was telling me a story this morning. This guy, 41, 42 years old, and 3 years ago, something happened in his chest started just caving in, and they never figured out why, to the point where his like chest was an inch or two away from his spine. Horrific thing. They fix it through surgery. And then right when he recovers, he's diagnosed with Parkinson's. And he's 45. He's my age, man. He's got kids, and it's the same thing. Like that happened to him. That happened. He said the guy's like positive, faith is strong.
I
bet he's just rolling, man.
Here's what I will tell you. I don't know this guy. I've never heard that story before, but the fact that you're talking about he's got faith and he keeps rolling, I promise you, if you ask him, he will never tell you. He will not accept that happened to him. Yeah. I bet you anything, based upon the fact that simply because what you said is he's still rolling, he has kept the faith, he's not lost it. I guarantee you, if you were to ask him, he would never allow you to say that happened to him. He will tell you it happened for him. It happened for his benefit. Yep.
And and also too, I've noticed as we've coached so many people through their businesses that the faster people, I don't know how to say this, like the faster you, I don't want to let go of results. That's what I mean, but that's not what I mean, because I do believe that results matter, and you've got to have some objectives if you're going to reach the next. You got to have your next step if you're going to take your next step, right? But the faster you do let go of the result defining you, I guess that's the way I would say it. You know what I'm saying? Like then you focus on the building of the membership or the launching of the coaching business or the whatever, and you really become content in what you're doing. That's where I am right now, like with our business. Like I'm really content right now with what we're doing every day. I'm content on Monday leading my team. I'm content on Wednesdays or Thursdays podcasting. I'm really, I don't know I mean, I have goals, but it's not really why I'm doing it anymore. And if the faster we see people let go of that, well, if I just it's losing the desperation and exchanging it for the inspiration of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You get there faster. People succeed faster. The good things tend to happen and just appear, even if it's not the goal you went after, right? Like I may want a partnership with one person, but then like this morning I got a call and I got on the phone with the CEO and I've got this incredible opportunity because another person that heard my podcast told them about me. Well, I was in love with my podcast and I put it out there and that guy heard it and told them. I didn't even pursue this thing. Yep. But like, that's what's cool, man, is that's when things seem to happen in your favor, is when you've lost the results define me kind of moment,
That is, I love the language of losing the results define me. You have to find your identity outside of the results, because the one thing is if your identity is tied to any result, results can disappear.
Yeah.
Results can be taken away.
Yeah.
And so if your results, if you're tied to your business and your business can be taken away, or if you're tied to your your investment net worth, then if your identity is tied to that, your identity can be taken away. If your identity is being debt free, and you go into debt because you have to for whatever reason, and that was your identity. So finding your identity, regardless of any external forces, and going and doing the inner work is where your identity is. Finding your identity. And Shane, I happen to know you and I share a similar faith, and so we find our identity in our Creator.
Yeah.
And so, and whatever it is, but the identity has to come from within. That the question is, can you come to peace, joy, and love and acceptance of who you are, regardless of what you have or what you do?
Yeah.
That those things are not necessary to define your success.
And they change. It's like I think what most people want to do when they are looking for success. This happens a lot because I think the membership model is so personal. So I see people attach, like there's a guy out in San Diego, he actually calls himself the chicken guy because that's what he does. Like he teaches people how to raise backyard chickens. One of my favorite stories out of the community. And that's cool. I mean, I'm not saying for right now, don't do that. But it's like, if I had identified myself as a football coach, which I did, I was a football coach for a decade. That was the first big leap I ever made of, well, my family wants me to do one thing, but I want to coach football. I'm going to be a football coach. So I became a football coach. And that was my identity then. But if I had never been able to let that, I remember the day that I coached my last game. We had started our business, and I felt this emerging entrepreneur coming out of me like a cocoon, And I remember our last game, we were in the playoffs, really closely contested game. I remember the fans, I was like yelling calls, and I was so mad. They were so mad. I thought they were going to climb up the ladder and kill me. I was up on the press box. I was a football coach, man. I was the defensive coordinator. I was that. And I remember we lost. It ended, and I knew I wasn't coming back the next year, right? I knew my football career was probably over. And I climbed down the ladder, and I went down, and I walked into the locker room and hugged all the seniors and all that stuff. And I remember getting off the bus that night when we came home and driving back. I had about a 20-minute drive back from the school to my house. And I just felt so much peace. I just let that cloak of that coach, I won't say a mask or a costume. I mean, that's exactly what I wanted then. It was to be that coach, but I let it go and became something else. And if I couldn't do that, how could you ever move to the next level? Because you would just be trapped. It'd be like a tattoo on your arm that said "Mom," and you had it until you were 80, and you couldn't get rid of it because you tattooed football coach on your arm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there are a couple things that come to my mind as I hear you share that story, Shane, and that's, number one, your identity wasn't as a football coach. That wasn't your identity. It's more of that was your brand at the time, or that was your occupation. It was the thing you did. It's not who you are. It's the thing you did. It's the outward. You said mask or whatever. It's kind of like it was a persona. It's like I'm going to go. This is a role that I'm an actor in the stage of life. And I'm going to be for this play, for this production, I'm going to be playing the role of football coach. And I did that. I have on my thing here, a podcast answer man. I was the podcast answer man.
Yeah, literally the podcast answer man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so so that was my brand. But there are a lot of people really tied. Cliff Ravenscraft is podcast answer man. That's all he's good for. It's like, this is, I recently started working with somebody. It's like, listen, here's my biggest struggle. I'm multi-gifted, I'm multi-talented, and that's my biggest curse. All I've ever wanted is to be really good at just one thing. And I'm like, dude, you got this all wrong.
Or you were like, that was my curse. Well, your dream was my curse, and vice versa, right?
So let me tell you something. God is, and this, he also shared faith. So I could say this to him because I knew this was his values as well. I said, listen, God created you to be multi-gifted and multi-talented. It is your ability to help people, a number of people, in a lot of different ways. That is, you're uniquely gifted and talented in these ways. Don't see God's greatest gift towards your identity and your purpose in this world. You got to stop seeing that as a curse.
Mm.
There is not one thing that you're meant to do in this world. There are lots of different community and on Broadway productions you could be playing in as the actor through this thing we call life. There's lots of different roles for you to play. And guess what? You get to choose what to audition for. Mm. You get to choose what parts. You can do all that stuff, but none of that actually changes your identity. And see, for me, what happened was I actually had to, I didn't have to. I came to the point where I could have kept the Podcast Answer Man brand, turned into a business, have it continue to make money, self-study online courses. I could have all of that stuff. But I was tired of people seeing Cliff Ravenscraft equals Podcast Answers. Dude, I have way more to share with this world than podcast stuff. And the funny part is, Shane, it's October 2020. Since December 2005, yes, it was December 2005, I've actually created more than 35 different podcast shows and have produced well over 5,000 podcast episodes. And this right here, what I'm doing right here, this is like more than 1,000 different podcast interviews. So I've done a ton of podcasting. Now, guess what? I've even gotten more clarity about who I am and what my identity is. And if you go and look for me anywhere on the internet, and since August, it's very hard to find a trace. I'm surprised people haven't started reaching out to my wife and say, "Is your husband okay? Has he passed away?" I haven't. I actually deleted all of the social media apps except for TikTok off of my phone in September. Did not sign in on the web, and I said I'm going to do that all of September. And here it is, October 14th. I haven't taken the time to sign into those things since, because that's not my identity. I don't have to be there. I don't have to be that person. I don't have to always be on the top of people's minds. I've learned, for me, in this season of life, I want to serve a very small number of people, and I want to go to the depths with my relationship with them. I want to serve them at the deepest level that they'll never be able to understand and comprehend how someone could love them and serve them that deeply. That's who I am in this season of life. And because of that, I abandoned the thousands and the tens of thousands. The Cliff Ravenscraft show, in the last 2 months, I think there's 1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And they're all the other podcasts, nothing. And that's, I may actually keep it up for the rest of this year. I don't know. But that's the one thing I've learned, is my identity is not tied to being known and being on the top of mind of all these people anymore. It's like, man, and the funny part is in 2020, I haven't lost any clients. Okay, let me just say this. For the record now, through the first 9 months of 2020, didn't lose a single client. I just had one client that dropped out. But I hadn't lost any clients until in October, so fourth quarter of the year. But I've also massively increased the number. When I say massive, I've taken on like 6 new clients, which is a lot for me because I charge an incredibly
it's higher ticket for sure. Yeah, but retention's exceptional.
Retention's amazing,
especially this year.
Yeah,
and that's let me I wanted to tell you this story real quick, and then I'll circle back to retention, because that's so critical for like memberships. Is not just a $50 a month membership. I mean, we've got a $500 a month membership that we run. We got a $200 a month subscription. You've got, hundreds of dollars a month or whatever.
No, like $2,250 a month.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same thing. It's just a smaller group, basically, paying higher prices. But all the mechanics are the same. You have to sell it. You've got to get retention. You have to serve. You have to whatever. But what I was going to say before that, to circle back, is that I learned what you were just talking about in 2015. I think it's the first time I realized the constant changing of the persona has to happen if you're going to keep like growing as a bit. Like this year, I made it. I've talked to you about this. Like I made a huge change this year. I decided I wanted to be more of like a CEO. I wanted to have a team. I wanted to be leading the team and kind of sending my troops into battle. Right. So back in March, I started hiring people. So I shed Shane's the host of the podcast mentality, which I still am, of course. But it was more like, no, I'm not just the guy who emails you and the guy. I'm going to be the CEO who leads this team that serves the people better. And I learned this the first time back in I think it was 2015. I was at an event and I was sitting at a table and I was talking to Lewis Howes. And we were just talking about like success and growth and like from a real business though, not more like mental stuff. But he said something really interesting to me that's always stuck out to me. He said, let me ask you a question, because we had went around the horn on some things. And he said, what do you want right now? And I'd heard the question before, like, what do you want? Right. And you think, oh, I want $1 million, or I want a car, or I want to quit my job, or whatever you want. Right. But it was the way he said that to me. And he was like, what do you want right now? And it made me completely shift what I was thinking, because I was like, wait a minute, I can pick what I want now, and then I can get something later. And maybe that doesn't have to be what I was picking up until this point. Right. And for membership owners, or for business owners, or for podcasters, or for anybody, what do you want right now? We always did the 5-year, 10-year vision thing, right? That everybody does. Dude, I learned this year to plan about 24 to 36 months. Like, that's what you want, right? And that's your next chapter, right? And build that now. If you can define that, that's what most people don't do. They say, I want a membership. I want 100 people paying me $50 a month. I want 1,000 people paying me $50 a month. But nah, it's not what you really want. You want something else that'll get you, right?
Yep.
And you've got to write that down, and you've got to define that. And if you don't know what you want, nobody's going to help you get it or figure it out for you. And that's what most people, that's the biggest mindset issue I see with people coming to us from desperation in our programs is, what do you want right now? Like in the next 2 years, what do you really want to happen? And how can you do that? And then once you figure that out, the other stuff is kind of cookie cutter. It's like, oh, I got an email. Oh, I got a sell thing. You know what I mean? Like that's the cookie cutter stuff, but it's got to build to what you want, or it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Yeah. And deciding what you want and at what cost what are you willing to sacrifice to get it? You got to ask that question as well. I got a funny story. So I know that you'll know who Mark Mason is, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yep. So Mark and I were sitting there chatting one day, and I was telling him, I said, listen, I'm going through Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill again. And all of a sudden, the whole idea, the concept of a mastermind group has hit me at a whole different level. I never realized this. I thought, man, I'm just not one of those entrepreneurs that's going to run a business and have a large team and all that stuff. I'm just pretty sure that's just not the life for me, at least not in this season of my life. I have no desire for that. But then I read in Think and Grow Rich about Andrew Carnegie and the American Steel Company, and the fact that Napoleon Hill says that Andrew Carnegie said, listen, I had no idea about anything in the steel industry. The only thing I did is I knew that I wanted to actually make a massive amount of wealth in this industry. And so what I did is I hired a bunch of people, and he basically was a mastermind group facilitator. Now, I'm like, Mark, right. I happen to have an expertise in mastermind group facilitation. What if I was to actually take an investment and go and choose an industry? It doesn't matter if I know the industry or not, but find people who do know the industry. And I simply start off with a CEO, a CFO, and a COO. And I give them the vision of the company and say, hey, now go and make this a profitable business and under this value system and how we serve people and stuff like that. These are the non-negotiables of how, what this all looks like. Now go. And anytime you guys run into issues, you guys are struggling to make decisions, you've got issues of, relationship issues, stuff like it doesn't matter. Just bring it to me once a week, twice a week while we first start off. And then eventually after 6 months, maybe I meet with you once a month. But it started to hit. It's like, oh, this is how somebody like a Tony Robbins can own 22 companies and have 2,000 employees. And so I sit there, I said, Mark, for the first time in my life, I think maybe there's a possibility that I'll be that official entrepreneur who owns multiple companies. I said, I don't know that's going to, but who knows? Maybe you and I one day will have a business together. Right. He goes, dude, sign me up tomorrow. I'm like, I'm ready to sign up tomorrow is what he said. And I wasn't ready for him to say that. And so I let that sit for a while. And he says, hey, I wasn't joking. He said, if you ever want to start a business together, we could partner in a business. So one day I'm coming home from the gym. This is like about 8 weeks ago. All right. So I'm coming home from the gym and I tell Siri to text Mark a message. And I say, hey, do you have time for a quick call? Let's have a dream session about what a potential business you and I might partner in look like. And so he's like, sure. And so as soon as I got home, we get on this call. 2.5 hours later, we've literally mapped out the entire culture of our business. Like we have our value systems and all this other stuff. And then we eventually got into what industry we would choose and what products and all of this stuff. And we're talking how much money each of us is going to put into the bank account to invest and all this other stuff. And I'm like, wait a second, Mark. Hold on a second. This is all so exciting. Seriously, this has been an incredible amount of fun. But I am sensing something inside of my spirit right now, and I just feel like I need to pump the brakes here, and I need to ask you to give me some time because I really this can get out of control fast.
Yep.
And I need to check in with myself. It's not like I need to go ask my wife for. I need to ask my identity for permission on this. And so I took the next 4 or 5 days, thought about it, prayed about it, and I came back to Mark and I said, dude, this ain't happening in 2020. And also, I can tell you this ain't happening in 2021. I said, these are all things that are exciting. I could definitely see this happening. And if I were going to partner with anybody in a business, you'd probably be the first person I'd partner with. And everything we've done here, I don't think it's all in vain. Who knows? This may be inevitable. But I'm clear. It is not happening in 2020, and it is not happening in 2021. There is no way I'm giving up the margin that I have built for this season of my life, because what I'm doing now, I'm working Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I have every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off. I'm devoting 3 to 8 hours a day, every day, learning and growing. And currently that is spent on studying philosophy and faith and the origin of all things. And that's this season of life for me.
Yeah, man. But what's good about that though is, I think that actually might have been the summary of all the philosophy. Are you good on time? I don't want to.
I am. I'm fine, dude.
I am too, man. I'm having fun. What makes that part, that's kind of like a period on what we've been talking about, because when you do reach that place where you're content, I guess would be a good word for it, and you have got the margin where your life looks good. Like I dig, like right now, man, I feel so sorry for people who, not sorry, that's not the word. I really empathize with people who are working 9-to-5s for other people, may have a boss like I used to have that wouldn't give me the day off for my family, and they're struggling with virtual school, things like that, you know? And there's a lot of goals I have, but I would never choose to do them now, because Isaac needs help with decimals at 9:55. And I get to do that every day at 9:55. But when you become content and you know what you're doing and you know what you want right now, like we've been talking about, the period on the end of the sentence is the ability to say no to everything else. You already have what you want. You've chosen it. You've decided that you're going to be happy, and you're going to be happy where you're planted. And you're going to hey, listen, we can have any conversation in the world, right? But I think the difference between a baby entrepreneur and maybe a more mature entrepreneur is you don't chase all the squirrels, right? Like the squirrels that you can sit and go, that's a pretty squirrel. But you know what? I'll catch you later. I'm good. I'm going to let it go, man. I'm content. I'm happy, and I'm good. And man, that's just a superpower when Shane, you got a business, you know.
You want to. So it sounds like Cliff's talking. He's got it all together. You want to hear how the whole flip flop back and forth kind of thing. I did a podcast episode a long time ago. It's probably about 2 years ago, and I think the title of the episode was "Build the Boats." Build the darn boats. All right, so this is hilarious. Do you have time? Because this one.
No, I'm good, man.
This is a fun little rabbit hole, I think, because I've gone back and then forth and then back again. So there's the parable of the Mexican fisher or the South American fisher. You know, this businessman goes away for a little vacation, and he's in this little village, and he finds this one guy, comes out of the village, and he goes out, fishes, his boat is full of fish, and he's like, hey, what are you doing? He goes, yeah, I went out, got fish, got enough fish for myself and family and stuff like that. I'm going to go and cook dinner for the family, take an afternoon siesta. Tonight I'm going to play guitar with my friends and just enjoy life. He goes, wow, that sounds amazing. He goes, well, if you've got this ability, why don't you build a boat, and you could actually teach somebody else how to do what you're doing? And he says, well, why would I do that? And he says, well, if you did that, you could do this. And if you did that, you could do this. And it goes, you could actually build a bigger boats, and you could have a fleet, and you could actually build, and then you could have trade with all of these other companies, and you could export your goods, and you could have this big, huge business, and blah, blah, blah. And he keeps saying, and why would I do that? And why would I do that? He goes, because then, and he says, and then ultimately, when you're 65 years old, you could retire so that you could actually spend your afternoon out here fishing, go back, fix yourself a meal. You could take your siesta and play guitar with your friends at night.
Yeah, man. I love that story, dude.
So the thing is the whole moral of the story is why don't you just do what you want now and forgo all that crazy busyness? So that's the moral of the story. But I did a podcast episode about 2 years ago titled "Build the Boats."
And then you realized, wait a minute, that was not correct.
Hold on. So I sit there. I said, I hate this story. How selfish of the people who say that this guy should not build the boats. Imagine it. Just think if he would have followed the advice of the businessman. Think about the other people in the village who would have had a job. Think about the people who built the bigger boats who would have had more business and income to be able to provide for their families by building those boats, and the businesses and the trade deals and the commissions and all of this other stuff, and just how he contributes to the economy and the good of all people by building a big, huge business. And so my whole thing was like, there's nothing wrong with building the boats and building a big business so that you can, it's like, and so, but now I'm back like, why do all that?
Give me my guitar.
Give me the guitar.
Give me the guitar.
I'm going to go take a siesta now.
Yeah, man. It's crazy, dude. Yep. And that goes back to those personal expectations, though. Like, there probably isn't anything wrong with building the boats.
There's nothing
if that's
wrong
what you
with
want to
it.
do, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with not building the boats. You know what I'm saying?
Success is the man who's doing what he's doing because he intentionally chose to do it. And by the way, it's not success if you're building the boats because you feel like that's what everybody thinks you ought to be doing.
That's the real moral of the story. So the moral of the story can be construed as you're already doing what you want. That's the moral of the story, which is one of the morals of the story.
It's one of the morals of the story.
Right. But then the other moral is that guy's imposing success on the guy. Right? That guy believes that's successful. The first guy, there's probably nothing wrong with that. And it's the same thing like with our memberships. Like we have a guest that's going to be on the Flip Lifestyle podcast soon. We have a member of the community who started a membership like 3 or 4 years ago, and she did $35 million last year. Nice. It's just absolutely, it's the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Right? And I can actually go back to the moment where she committed to the membership model over something else, right? Like all these cool things. And as we have been learning more, preparing for this interview with her, we have been looking at how she built that. You know what I'm saying? And it's literally like we're the people that teach people how to do memberships. That's what we do, man. You know what I mean? And we get people sometimes who've made so many more. Like we had a guest on the podcast the other day. Her name was Jody Moore, and she has 4,000 members, Cliff. She's impacting 4,000 moms and marriages all across the country. It's incredible. And then we look and we say, well, what does her team look like? We ask her, I'm learning about these things, and I'm like, you know what's cool is we have not done that. I've not done $35 million. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like, that's cool. That's the way she chose to build her thing. I like getting up in the morning and going out to the lake behind my house. Yep. And doing this. I like to I chose to spend my time this way. There is neither one wrong. There's another guy that lives up in Lexington, Kentucky, actually, near us. And he started this little business. He started making more than he had ever made freelancing, right, on his membership. And he just kind of put that bad boy in neutral and was like, you know what, man, if I get one more member every month from now on out, I'm good. This is the most money I've ever made. I get to go to my kids' band competitions, like all this stuff, man. And like he's in neutral right now. And when you realize that entrepreneurship and these choices that we make, I mean, even working for someone else, you still get to pick who you work for, right?
Yep.
Once you figure that out, man, it becomes like super easy, and you can and then you're in your zone of genius, which I guess this is a good segue back to what I was talking about earlier. So like your zone of genius is really where you're kind of your current zone of genius, I guess is the best way to say it. So you've settled into this coaching model with a small cohort, these monthly prices that are higher than what most people would charge, basically, or could charge, or whatever, however you want to position it, right? So like now that you're in this and you're fixed in it, that model really is all about retention. Like there's a sales, you got to get people in the door, but once you get them, you got to keep them for a long time, right? So how are you keeping people so long, paying such a high like price like that? Like how are you doing that?
So just so you know, I do 2 paid mastermind groups. One meets on Wednesday mornings, one meets on Thursday evenings. And let me just tell you what I've got here. So I have 10 people in the AM group. 3 of them are in at the newest price, which is $2,250 a month. And 2 of the 3 people have already renewed for another year at that price. So and the 3rd I anticipate will be doing so as well. The other 7 people in that group are paying $1,000 a month for the mastermind, and that's because I grandfathered them in at the $1,000 a month.
Beta rate, basically, like founders members or whatever.
What the first person on the list here, he's in Sweden. He's been in the group since December 2017. So he's going on 3 years in the group at $1,000 a month. So I don't anticipate anybody leaving that group in 2021 probably. So that's the kind of retention. I'll explain how in just a moment. But then I have 8 people in the PM group of the Next Level Mastermind, and those are all paying $1,000 a month. They've all been in there, and everybody in that group has been in at least 1 year. Several of them more than 2 years. So that and I can't see I'm looking at their names. I can't see one of those people leaving in 2021.
And we'll talk about why that happens, of course. But like that blows up, I think, a big fear that a lot of people have with any kind of recurring model is that people aren't going to pay forever. But like we see the same thing, man. We have people still from the first cohort from 2014 when we launched the Flip Your Life community. You know what I'm saying? And price is not the number one factor in retention. It's just not. And people got to let that go. And the faster you let that go, the faster LTV becomes, how do I keep this person as a forever cut? Now the conversation changes. It's not how do I get money from them next month. It's okay, what do I got to do to turn this into a forever customer? Which is kind of what you're creating right here. You know?
Well, and let me just tell you, I used to have turnover. I used to have significant turnover, and so much so, I'll just be very authentic and tell you that when I had the $38,000 loss because I wasn't profitable of Free the Dream the first year, brand new venture, never done a conference before, lost a lot of money, and while I was nonstop marketing an event which I'd never marketed before, I was absent from serving those members in the meetings in between the meetings. I just did. It's like, listen, I promise you'd have an incredible weekly mastermind environment. And I always lived up to that standard, but I didn't go above and beyond like I was normally doing because I got distracted by all the marketing of this stuff. And then what happened was after Free the Dream, people are actually leading up to Free the Dream. People were dropping out. There are people paying $1,000 a month, and it's like, man, 1 month I lost a member. Well, a member had made their 1 year commitment, and it's done. And he's like, hey, it's been a great year. My life, I'll give you great testimonials, but I'm off. I'm going to go invest elsewhere now. And then the next month, 2 more people had been, their 1 year was up, and they'd move on. And I was like, man. Maybe I should, and I actually thought maybe $1,000 a month is too much money. And I started to enter in a little bit of a mindset of scarcity. Here I am, the new, I went from podcast answer man. Now I'm the mindset answer man, and I'm suffering from a mindset of scarcity. So a little part of my story, transparently, is I started a 3rd group that was $250 a month, but it only met twice a month.
Oh man, you took a sampler platter out there. I cut you a piece of the steak off.
Oh, it was such a terrible idea. And stuff like that. But I did some work. It took me about 3 months to come around and see the ridiculousness of what I was doing and how I was thinking, what I was believing. And I eventually came around. So what happened was I said, okay, this is done deal. I'm shutting down this third group. There's no way I should be doing a group at $250 a month. It doesn't make sense financially. And you know what? I can be someone who would actually, and I could actually discern who are the type of people who would be in this group, would understand its value, and wouldn't leave at the end of their 1-year commitment, and only invite those people in. And then all of a sudden I was like, what? And that's not even good enough, because ultimately my goal is to have 10 people who pay $100,000 a year for my mastermind group. That's 3 to 5 years down the road. That's what the next level mastermind will be. There will be 10 people in the group paying $100,000 a year to be in the group. Yeah. That's $1 million. It's like, okay, that'd be cool. I could deal with that. So, but here's what I want to do is I'm actually going to more than double the price. It went from $1,000 a month to $2,250 a month, which comes out to $27,000 a year. But if you pay in full, you can get it for $25,000. So far, everybody who's signed up at the new rate has done monthly. So it's $2,250 a month. I've had no problem at all. I've only invited 4 people to join the mastermind group since I have raised the rates. 3 of them said yes. Mm-hmm. 1 of them is absolutely aggressively working to where he can afford it.
Yeah.
So so the number 1, it's discerning who are the right people, what's the right fit, making sure that that's there. The second thing,
and that's a retention tip.
Yes.
Like getting the right people into the group so that they renew is half the battle. Once you got the right person, like when I get a history teacher to join ushistoryteachers.com's membership, they're going to be teaching history for the next 25 years till they retire. They're the right person. They're the right fit. I don't have to worry about the retention at that point. You know what I'm saying?
And by the way, I actually interview, and not even interview, I audition people without them even knowing that they're auditioning to be in my group. I audition people, and I'll explain how. In fact, I'll just tell you real quickly. I use this book. It's called The Prosperous Coach Method. I literally do every single thing, everything word for word in this book. I apply it.
And that's by Steve Chandler and Rich who?
Rich Litvin. It's called The Prosperous Coach. It's the only marketing that I do. And by the way, I've added lots of clients. I haven't added a lot of clients since September in the mastermind group, but I've had some one-on-one. I just signed on. My latest client is paying $2,750 a month for one-on-one coaching with me, and we meet twice a month.
Love it.
So, but anyway, no social media at all. I have no social media, no podcast episodes that I'm putting out. I just use this method here. So, and by this, for those in audio only, I'm talking about the Prosperous Coach Method book.
Yeah, and we'll put that link in the show notes too for anybody that wants it.
So. Here's what's required. I have a list of my favorite client attributes. What's required of any client that I work with, either in the mastermind or my one-on-one. My client has a desire, the capacity, and a willingness to serve others at the highest level. All right. And there's a difference between a desire to serve others and the capacity to. And then there are people who have a desire and they also have the capacity, but they lack the willingness. So my clients must have a desire, the capacity, and the willingness to do it at the highest level. But that's not all. They also must have a strong commitment to being of service to others. All right? And that needs to have been demonstrated on various occasions throughout their journey. My client is a high-level thinker that gravitates towards a positive outlook on life. I suffer no negativity in my life.
Yeah.
You get on a call with me and you talk to me about what's been done to you and how this has happened to you, and you play the role of the victim. Dude, one strike, you're out. Yeah. I'm done. You do not move towards round 2 of the auditioning process. So gravitates towards a high positive outlook on life. Everyone that I work with, they must be a leader. even though they may not recognize leadership as one of their superpowers, it's very clear that how I define a leader, this person is clearly a leader. And number one, they're a powerful leader of their own life. They are able to get themselves to do something, to motivate and encourage and inspire themselves and others. Another attribute, they're a high achiever. This person that I'm working with, they have achieved things that most people would consider to be impossible. And also, it's just a side attribute that oftentimes the people I work with will take for granted just how special their achievements are. And so my clients need a lot of reminders of just how powerful they are.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm good at doing. My clients
are you checking these off kind of as your audition? Like, hey, let's have a talk. And you've got prompts and things to kind of explore that. It's almost like targeting. It's almost like targeting in an ad. It's just one-on-one. Because when we target our ads, we always say, okay, we want members who are definitely between 29 and 55 and have school-age kids. The filter's on. So by default, anyone that sees that ad has to meet that criteria because that's the culture of the Flip Your Life community. You're doing the same thing. This is what a membership that you got to get the right. You have to make sure it's the right person before you let them in, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and I'll tell you how I get to these, but I'll just, lifelong learner devoted to unceasing personal and professional growth. They have to have marketable skills in abundance. And by the way, and not see them as a curse. Just saying. Let's see here. Extremely coachable. They're able to receive an insight and immediately see how that insight that they just got, that light bulb moment, they're the type of person I work with. They don't need me to tell them how that insight's going to change their life. They're able to see it for themselves.
Yeah. All
they need is the insight. If I can ask a question and that question causes them to say, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. And then they could sit in silence for 45 seconds, which seems like an eternity. But they're actually running through their mind how their life is never going to be the same. That's a coachable person. My clients are self-motivated, self-startered. I am not an accountability coach. They struggle to find others who are performing in life at their level. This often leaves them feeling lonely. When faced with the problem, they rarely have someone to turn to who can give them insightful advice. They don't lack people who are willing to give advice. The thing is at their level, very few people are able to give insightful advice. It's like, I have no idea what you're dealing with, but this is what I might do.
It's like we have a saying, like a buddy of mine told me when we sold elementarylibrarian.com, we were like, God, man, this is crazy. Like, what are we going to do with $1 million? And he goes, well, I know the first thing I know what you shouldn't do. And I said, what's that? And he said, don't listen to people who haven't made $1 million give you advice on how to spend $1 million.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And it just turned everybody off at that moment. I got to find some people that have done this before because we're going to mess this up bad if we start listening to my Uncle Bob and whatever he wants to tell me to do. You know?
Oh, wow. So basically, those are the attributes. So what I do is first of all, I don't invest a lot of time with anybody until I have a good suspicion and have discerned that it's likely that the person that I'm engaging with or interacting with is likely to actually meet all of this criteria. And where do I find these people? They're everywhere. They're everywhere. This could be at the grocery store. It could be at church. It could be in my email inbox. And what I do is step one is I connect with people and I ask them questions. Hey, tell me, what's the biggest dream that you have here in 2020? And what is it that excites you or scares you the most? And I just listen to people. And I ask that kind of question to everybody. And if they come back and it's like, life really sucks, blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh man, well, I just want to encourage you. I just, keep you in my prayers, my thoughts. And I let them go on their merry way because they failed the audition.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, but if they come back and it's got a pretty, hey, I got this really big dream, but I've got some setbacks. And then it's like, oh, well, this person's coachable. Well, let's see if they're coachable. So I'll ask them a very powerful coaching question, and I'll just see. I'll see. It's like, listen, let me give you a little bit here and see what you do with what I've just laid out for you. It's like, wow, Cliff, I've never thought about that. You know what? Thank you. That's incredibly powerful. And then I'll ask them another question to see where they fit and to give. And I'll do a lot of connect. There's one guy, one of my clients that I have right now. I had asked him a string of questions for 3 months before I invited him into a complimentary coaching call with me.
Wow.
And then
That's some serious vetting.
I do it all. That I have to vet everyone.
Yeah.
And
so especially
then,
working one-on-one, because if you get the wrong person, and especially you're giving them access to each other too, right? Like they get to talk to the mastermind.
The mastermind is access to each other. I have some one-on-one clients. It's just me and them.
Right. So that's the ultimate filter.
The mastermind.
But dude, they could be a great fit for you. This is another thing too. You may love somebody and they may be a great fit for you, but they might not be a great fit for the culture of the group. And you got another. We've had to kick members out for that reason.
Yeah.
That just didn't fit. They were talking about other things, and we were like, hey, we're going to move on because you're not talking about what we're talking about, basically. I like you, but that's just not a good fit for the group.
Yep.
You know?
I had somebody that was in that category, and I moved them to one-on-one coaching. Said, listen, this isn't going to work. I'd like to work with you one-on-one.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So if that helps you, so the big thing is the discernment process going in and bringing those in. Now the other thing is, and this is a standard thing, under promise and over deliver. Under promise and over deliver. So what I do is people coming into this mastermind group, which is that's the membership model that I have, right? So when I bring people in, I am fully promoting a weekly environment that is the highest level, highest caliber people. This is the meeting you will look forward to every single week. More than anything else you do in your business, this will be the highlight of your week every single week. That's my promise. And it's going to give you insight after insight. You're going to have connection to other high thinking people who are high achieving, who are taking life seriously. You have never been a part of a group like this before. That is what you're getting for your $2,250 a month. And that's what they come in. Now, the thing is I mention that also I offer one-on-one coaching. I don't go into detail how frequent that is or anything like that, but man, if there's ever anything that's going on, that I'm available one-on-one. I'll jump on a call with you. All right. Now, what I don't tell them is that I'm literally going to give them 1 90-minute one-on-one coaching session with me every single month if they're at this new price.
Yeah.
And the people who are paying $1,000 a month, I give them 1 90-minute call every other month.
Yeah.
And ever since I started doing that, like I said, nobody's gone. I mentioned that I just lost somebody.
So
they
don't expect that one-on-one call that's that long, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I thought it was just a group. I get to talk to you too, like whatever. Like
that's exact. There, I don't set it as an expectation that they get a monthly call.
Oh my gosh! But you know what's genius about that, Cliff? I don't even know if you're seeing this. What's genius, like you said, I'm writing down notes here. You said under promise and over deliver. Like I'll review my notes I'm taking. But like when you say that, it was amazing because then you went into this. It's the thing you'll look forward to the most. The highest level people. These are things. I'm sure someone was listening to that going, wait a minute, you just said under promise and over deliver. But the thing is, like the expectation of how awesome it is not really what you're under promising. It is awesome, so you tell them how awesome it is. Yeah. But then it's the additional. You over deliver on the access or what they in their mind expected the program to look like. It doesn't matter what it originally looked like. You're just giving them more. You just found a way to give them more.
I promise the world. This will transform your life. Yeah. Your life will never be the same. And by the way, I do that because of this book. Hold on. And by the way, this is a book you can write it down, but I don't write. A friend of mine, his name is Tim Schur. He's a professional clinical hypnotherapist. All right. And we became a friend. This is actually a textbook that he actually went through when he was in college, and it's out of print. And so he bought this for me as a gift. It's very expensive to go find a copy of this.
The Wizard Within.
It's called The Wizard Within. It is the Krasner Method of Clinical Hypnotherapy by Dr. A.M. Krasner. He sent me this. I said, dude, I'm so intrigued by the world of hypnotherapy and I know nothing about it. What's a good book for me to be introduced to the concepts of hypnotherapy? He goes, Cliff, you don't know this, but you're an expert hypnotherapist. And I'm like, what? He goes, you are. He says, you are what we call mesmerizing. Now, let me ask you something. Shane, how long have you and I been talking?
Oh, we've been going an hour and a half. Easy.
Does it feel like we've been talking for an hour and a half?
No, because we're having fun, man. I'm mesmerized by what you're doing.
You and anyone who is still listening to us, they are in a trance state.
Yeah.
I have intentionally, and by the way, I used to do it unintentionally, but I am intentionally keeping you and everyone else listening to this podcast in a trance hypnotic state. And this book, so by the way, I learned the power of something called auto-suggestion. So when I tell somebody that you're going to look forward to this meeting more than anything else in your week, guaranteed, this is going to be the highlight of your week.
Yeah.
Because we
Inception.
Because we are in rapport. And there has been so much trust that's been built before this proposal has been made. By the way, typically most people have had 2 90-minute one-on-one sessions with me prior to me making this presentation. So I've already given them 3 hours of my life absolutely for free, which is thousands of dollars of value worth of coaching before making the suggestion that this is going to be the highlight of their life.
Yeah.
And because they accept it, they literally are going in with their reticular activating system automatically engaged. They are looking for this. They're on the lookout for the insights that are transforming their life on a weekly basis. It's kind of like the people who just bought a red Lexus and they'd never had a red Lexus before, and they really saw maybe 1 or 2 of them over the course of the last year or 18 months. But now they just bought a red Lexus. And now guess what? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, red Lexuses are on every single street in every parking lot. There's like 10 of them in every parking lot.
That literally happened to me when I bought my Navigator.
Do you want to know why?
Why?
Because you and I are confronted with an endless, infinite number of sensory input. There's just look in my picture here. How many different things could you be focused on in the background of my image? By the way, did you notice there's a plant behind me?
I did now because you just said it.
Did you know it before I said it?
No, I was looking at. No, I didn't know there was a Next Level Studio TV.
So
that's the only thing I've really been paying attention to.
Exactly. The thing is, though,
I didn't know you had a bookshelf behind you until you started pulling books off of it.
Exactly. Because by the way, we have so much sensory data coming into our brain through all of our 5 senses. The feeling, smell, all of the stuff going on. You've got an seemingly infinite number of things that you could be paying attention to. But if you were paying attention to it all, your brain would explode. Your conscious mind would explode. All right? But instead, what you do is you focus on a little bit and you generalize, delete, or distort everything else. All right? So what is you said it just happened to you. You just got what? An Explorer?
No, last year I bought we do pretty good. You know what I'm saying? And I'd always had minivans and cars and everything. So I said, Jocelyn, we're going to buy $100,000 vehicle. All right. So I went out and I said, you know what? What do you want? And she really wanted an SUV. We started looking at Suburbans, Denali's and stuff like that. And I said, we fell in love with this Navigator.
Okay, Navigator.
And it was a custom, dude. Like it was like limited edition yacht club interior, ridiculous, stupid purchase. That's what it was. But I wanted to make the stupid purchase. And dude, I drove that thing off the lot. Felt like it was the most unique car on the planet. I saw 3 on the way home. Yeah, and I'd never even known this car existed before that moment. You know?
The thing is, the 3 cars that you passed on the way home, chances are you probably passed them on the way there. And the reason why, Shane, you didn't notice them before is the same reason you didn't notice the plant or the bookshelf behind me prior to me mentioning them. Because it's extra sensory information that is not deemed important to your brain. Because if something's not important, your brain will not let you consciously be aware of it. So what happens is you go into a parking lot and you're looking for your vehicle, it's probably a good idea to tell your brain, hey, this Navigator is an important piece of data now. Mm. So you may not know this, but when you made the purchase of that vehicle, you then told your reticular activating system to be on the lookout for this sensory input. if you see this shape, this color of a vehicle, it's important. I will bring it to your subconscious mind, will bring that sensory data and make you consciously aware of it.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's like when you play that game, like where you hit the ceiling when you see one headlight. Like you never notice a car has one headlight until you're playing that freaking game. And then you're like, dude, nobody has any headlights. Everybody's headlights are broken. And you just see one every mile. Like from that moment on, every time that you do it.
So let me tell you how this fits into this promise that you're going to receive life-changing, life transformational insights in every meeting. You know, you'll every time you come to this call, you'll come to the call one person, but because of the insight, the different distinctions on how you evaluate your life in the world based upon what you hear in our meetings every single week, you'll leave the meeting a different person, because once you've left that 90-minute call, you'll never go back to seeing the world based upon your old belief system or the old way you saw things prior to that. All right. Now, here's the thing. If I didn't do all of that and I said, hey, this is going to be a great meeting, and you sit there and your thought is like, wow, I'm going to go into this call and I'm going to make sure, is this worth $1,000 or is this worth $2,250 a month? Is this worth $2,250 a month? And you sit on that call for 90 minutes like, man, there's a lot of other things I should have been doing in my business. Do you know how big my thing is? It's like, I just don't know if it was worth this $2,250 a month. The thing is during that 90-minute call, are there an infinite number of things they could have been paying attention to during that call?
Yeah.
Well, what am I telling them to be on? What am I telling them to make sure to be on the lookout for?
That moment that's worth that is basically it. Yeah. And then also too, like I do this a lot on our member calls. So we'll have 150 people show up at a live call. I'll be taking questions for 2 hours. And I always try to say, like, sometimes there's always a value bomb or some crazy something happens, right? Because somebody asks a great question that you know the exact answer to, or even someone comments in the chat and you're like, read it and you're like, that's the bomb. Or someone will succeed and you'll say, oh man, success. And you'll say like, wasn't that worth the monthly membership right there? And boom, it is. And those people aren't, that's why our retention is so high coming out of, those people stay the longest because you get those moments to highlight why it's worth it. If you don't show up, it's not, if you can't get them there, it's not worth it. But when you can say, this is totally worth it, and that's why, then they're coming back for the next week or the next month or the next, like whatever, basically.
Absolutely. So does that answer your question how my retention is so high?
Man. Yeah, let me, I'll go back and what I wrote 7 notes here. You ready for this?
Yeah.
I might turn this into a PDF. Everybody go download it over at membershipmasters.com. All right, so the Cliff Ravenscraft's keys to retention. Okay, but this is really brilliant. So the first I actually reorganized them. I have 57 Post-it notes laying around me. All right. So the first one is, and this is something I actually learned this from Pat too recently. Pat Flynn. He had an application process for his first members. Even though it was lower tier, even though it was en masse, he eventually wants to open the doors because he wanted the first 500 people to set the tone. Right? But get the right person in the door. I don't care if you do what Cliff does one-on-one, if you do what Pat does with an application, or you do what I do, really tight targeting in your advertising and things like that. If you don't get the right people in, your retention is going to suck, basically. The second thing I picked up that you said, Cliff, was to be present. And number 3 was don't get distracted. So basically, like when you got distracted, you became less present, and that was the first hiccup you had in retention. So be present with your people. Don't be an absentee membership leader or whatever, and don't get distracted by other opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities by the people following you right now. Under promise, over deliver was what I wrote down at number 4. I loved the 5th note I took. The massive value before they ever join. Like there's so much. You said trust, but I think that also too there's reciprocity.
Reciprocity, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean they feel like they should be a part of it. Like it's we get people that apologize for quitting, and that's what you want, right? Yeah. Like they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I just got to go, but I love you guys so much, and I'm going to tell everybody about you. Like that reciprocity, but that doesn't get built in the membership. It gets built before they ever join your program.
So Shane, let me tell you something. I don't think that I consciously thought of this, but I will consciously think of it moving forward. So if I plan on proposing, let's just say what is essentially a $27,000 a year investment for this client, right? That's because that's what it is. It's a $27,000 investment at $2,250 a month. My goal, it hasn't officially consciously been there. It's subconsciously, it's how I serve. But here, from this day forward, I'm actually, based upon that note that you just made, this is my goal. I want to create a minimum of $27,000 worth of transformational, life-transforming value within those first 2 90-minute calls, to where pretty much anything that they get in the mastermind group is totally just bonus, icing on the cake.
Yeah, man. They're like, here, take my money. Basically, they're just ready to jump in at that point. You know what I mean? And then so the sixth thing is to, and this is a big note. I've got a double star by this one, is to be more intentional about focusing your members or your clients or your customers on what you want them to focus on, because they are distracted and they've got we've all got, it's not just distractions in your background. They're coming into the call from virtual school. They're coming into the call from watching the news for an hour and getting all the negativity from Fox, CNN, whatever, right? Like, so like you gotta laser focus them on, that's the moment you're paying for or whatever. And then 7 is access. This is a problem, and we have to erase this mindset that people come into all the time when they come into the membership model. Like, people think the membership model is passive income, and it's not passive income. There's a lot of ROI in the income, and there's definitely a lot of freedom in the income, because I can go away with my wife to Denver next week and not have to worry about the membership. It's all good, right, for a week. But like, if you're going to serve people and you're not just trying to make a buck, you got to have access. That doesn't have to be a 90-minute call every month or whatever, like you're saying, but they have to see you. You have to be there for them, and they have to know that. So I think those 7 tips, man, if everybody lived and died by those, especially that first one, just get the right people in. That's half the battle. I think we could all have a lot better retention in all of our products, our programs. And not only that, our people are going to get better results.
Yeah.
And that's what really keeps them in the long run anyway, man. So, dude, we could talk for 6 more hours. I'll probably Vox you here in about an hour and a half. You know what I'm saying? Just because I thought of something else that we didn't talk about. But dude, I love you, man. I appreciate you so much for coming on here. I tell this story anytime your name gets brought up in conversation, man. Back when we first started getting popular, I got really overwhelmed, and we didn't really know each other then from Adam. I sent you an email. You gave me a great piece of advice. And you didn't have to do that, man. I've always had so much respect for you, Cliff, and I've always loved you so much, man. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you better. And man, thank you for coming on the show today and just sharing all this wisdom and knowledge with everybody else. Since you don't have social, like if anybody wanted to follow what you were doing, where would they reach out to you, or where would they go check out your stuff?
You know, I'd forward. By the way, I just want to say I love you too, man. I really do, and I can't wait for us to be able to get you and Jocelyn and myself and Stephanie together, and we're
gotta
only
happen,
a couple hours apart from each other, so we'll definitely got to have that happen. But I still have the Free the Dream materials online, and I have an email newsletter that was, there's 28 weeks worth of email newsletter with valuable stuff. What I encourage people to do is go to mindsetanswerman.com/free. You'll see a 90-second video clip of me taking 3 $100 bills and shredding them to pieces and throwing them in the trash.
I've watched the video. It hurts every time he does it when you first watch the video. I'm just saying, but he's really doing it.
And I do that as an illustration to explain what I was doing on a consistent basis every single day in my business the first year that I was in business, or actually the first year and a half that I was in business, just throwing money away all the time because I had a fear of invoicing people because of my belief system. And if you like what you see in the 90 seconds, you can put your name and email address into the box, and you'll have access to that full opening keynote address, which will not only teach you why all beliefs have consequences, but you actually learn how to discover what limiting beliefs that you're currently unaware that you have, how to become aware of them, how to discover where they came from, how to divorce yourself from limiting beliefs that don't actually help you get what you most want or desire or are supposed to have in life. And it's pretty powerful. I can say this, that if you watch it, it'll transform your life. In fact, I'm confident that your life will never be the same if you watch that 1-hour video at mindsetanswerman.com/free. And by the way, if you want to, you could actually watch the video and immediately, the first time you get an email, click the unsubscribe button. It doesn't bother me at all. Keeps me under my next level of tier for ConvertKit since it's just on autopilot.
Love it, man. Cliff Ravenscraft, appreciate you, buddy.
I appreciate you too, Shane, man. We'll talk soon.
Hey, y'all, that's all the time that we have for today's Membership Masters podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If we can help you chase your online dream, we would love to do that over in the Flip Your Life community. That's where we help real people find and use their God-given talents to start, build, and grow an online business of their own. All you need is 100 people to pay you $50 a month to make $60,000 a year. Or if you want to dream big, all you need is 1,000 people to pay you $85 and you're going to make $1 million. But all of it starts with one simple step, and that's joining the Flip Your Life community. We have all the training, coaching, leadership, and community that you need to take your online business to the next level. All new members of the Flip Your Life community can join for 30 days for free. Just go to flippedlifestyle.com/free. That's FLIPPED lifestyle.com/free and start your 30-day trial today. That's all the time we have for this week's show. We'll see you next time.